the original question is, how would you define consciousness? Well, we have these levels of existence. We have the rock, which moves very slowly. We have the water, which moves quickly but doesn't, develop and really acts kind of more like a membrane than anything else. We have vegetable life. We have animal life. We have all these stages of evolution. We have humans who are unaware, who bump into things, who drop things, who are not aware of their body, who are uncomfortable. And then we have the more comfortable people, the more confident people, the people who are open to being vulnerable. We have people who are spiritually enlightened. We have these ideas that when they say something, it doesn't just mean what they say. They can speak on many, many levels. Therefore, and again, I'm talking about like now the Seventh Circuit is very well developed. Yogis, Sufis, sorcerers, people who are very conscious of their capacity to affect reality and how many different levels they can have that reality. And all it is, every one of those levels, to my best guess, is awareness. So let's pretend for a second that all of reality is, just one big thing. And your participation in that is based on your awareness. Your consciousness is the gateway to that. The fact that you can redirect your attention, redirect your awareness to parts of yourself to begin with. Everybody starts their journey on the inside, and it moves outwards into the outer world where you can start to examine things and really look at a rock and say, rock, you got anything going on besides being a rock? If I wait around for a few billion years, are you going to change into something else? Is that what's going to happen? So what if what we call consciousness is really just sort of a map? What's the geographical mathematical term? The three-dimensional map that you're looking at that changes from peak to peak, from person to person, right? From section of matter to section of matter, where some of it is very, very, very conscious, and other parts of it are not. You'd have to look at it that way because of how people are spread across the globe, how different levels of awareness. Areas with high levels of awareness have less incidences of violence because they are connected at a basic level. They are aware of themselves. Take the angriest, most ferocious dictator in the world and drop them in a room full of yogis, just comfortable people, smiling, offering some attention if they have something on their mind, and they can storm and they can fuss as much as they want, and all that anger can come pouring out. But when it's dropped into, that atmosphere, their awareness level will inevitably go up. They'll start to examine, well, is it okay that can I sit for a while? Can I release here? Can I be vulnerable? I'm a dictator. I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to be the strongest of the strong. Is it okay? And over time, they just settle down, they stop fussing, and they would eventually just maybe not be as apt because they do have a substantial amount of awareness to get caught up on. But you can see, the only point I'm trying to make here is somebody on that, I keep wanting to say tectonic map, but that's only because I've got geography on the brain because of question number 4. I'll get to question number 4 shortly. But if you have that high level of awareness and you drop somebody with a very low level of awareness, that just becomes the social norm. They look around and they're trapped in this room full of people who look like they'd be okay hugging somebody as full of anger as a dictator. And they have to deal with that, and that sort of subsumes their anger and awareness, and it just, rides the wave of some guy. And I'm sure somebody has a very spiritual, new agey sounding term for that wave that would be ridden by the dictator. Back to question 1 then. The argument over the mind. Well, in this model, the mind suddenly becomes just the crest of your particular wave. Where is your mind? What is it doing? How aware is it? Do you really have a consciousness of what your mind is doing? If you relax your thoughts, what are they doing? Are they really concentrated on the kind of things you want your life to do, or are they taking the shape of your own personal biology? Everybody is born with this hardwired biology. What could be considered, I would never use the word problems, because that's not strictly necessary, but everybody is born into this life, they live as they are shown, and then they look at somebody else's life, and they're like, oh, I like that life, I want that, I want to be able to do that, and then they try to do that, and suddenly they come up against this wall of their own biology, and it starts to interfere with what they're after. It's a very straightforward way of looking at, a person's life, but, it works as a pretty successful model. Why did I start into that? Where was I going? The existence of the mind, and awareness of that other life that they're hardwired against. So they have to go into themselves. They have to examine their own intelligence. Tim Leary called this I squared intelligence, looking at intelligence, meta-intelligence. And not just in the, Hofstadter sort of repetitive, I'm so meta, even this acronym sort of way. Don't get me wrong, it's cool, but it's a little more intention is in Tim Leary's version, where you start to examine your own intelligence and decide why you're making the decisions you make. How you can change what you're doing to get that life that you see that you like so much. And suddenly that becomes, the drive of your whole existence. How do you change the way you think? So what is your mind doing? Is it following your hardwired, genetic code, or is it, following the nature versus nurture, the nurturing aspect of that, right? When you see somebody else's life, how able are you to shape it into that? And that is based on, again, your awareness. You want something, but unless you're aware of the blocks that are in between you and it in your thought process, can you do that? And that starts with ideas like your not the river of your thoughts, because that's inaccurate, but the river bed of your thoughts. People are often comfortable with, I am my thoughts, I think, therefore I am kind of deal. But if you examine it from this kind of hardwired, going into it with what my brain is already doing, this physical basis for a mental reality, then you're not your thoughts, you are not the water, you are the riverbed, right? And the thoughts are flowing through you in the shape of your riverbed, and you have to start to examine that riverbed in order to change. But at the same time, if they are that connected, if there is some sort of greater process, which is obviously a much, much wider conversation, this model does kind of depend on the fact that it's a process with purpose, that there is something going on, that evolution is probably happening. Maybe not, but probably in this model it works best if we assume that it is. And that every time we see something that we want and we come up against the block and we are forced to change, we are forced to evolve, we are forced to raise our awareness regarding that block, it sort of looks like part of a larger process, and then you have to again go into the riverbed where your underlying thoughts are kind of pouring through.